Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will learn Tosfos Dibra Maschel Ba'aseisa. Let's begin. Ba'aseisa. The Gemara explained that we learned from the word Ba'aseisa that only if one person did the entire malacha on his own, is he chayav a korban chatas. However, if each person did part of a malacha, then there's no chayav chatas. Says Tosfos, B'chol Sfarim Garsinan. In all the Sfarim, the text says Ha'oisa es kula. One who does the entire malacha is chayav a korban chatas. V'lo ha'oisa miktsasa, but not somebody who does part of the malacha. Yachid sha'asa isa chayav. An individual who did the malacha is chayav. Shnaim sha'asuav. Two people did the malacha. Turn their pater. Tosfos is going to say two things about this girsa. Number one, he'll explain what is the limud from Ba'aseisa. How do we learn it out? And number two, he's going to address the fact that it seems like it's repetitive. It says ha'oisa kula v'lo ha'oisa miktsasa, and then it says yachid sha'asa isa chayav. Shnaim sha'asuav turn. So let's start with how the limud works. Pashti dekra nira. The simple meaning of the pasuk, it seems to be the Ba'aseisa kaya nefesh. That Ba'aseisa is going on the word nefesh. The pasuk says, "V'im nefesh achas techta b'shkaga ma'am haaretz." If a person did an avera by mistake, Ba'aseisa achas mitzvos Hashem, by doing one of the things that Hashem commanded, Asher lo ta'asana, that a person shouldn't do, v'ashem, he needs to bring a korban chatas. So the simple meaning of the pasuk is that Ba'aseisa is going on nefesh. Nefesh achas techta b'shkaga ma'am haaretz. Ba'aseisa, when this nefesh is Ba'aseisa. Aval hashas dorish liyamalacha. The shas, the Gemara here is saying, attach the word Ba'aseisa to Ba'aseisa achas me mitzvahs Hashem asher lo ta'asana. It's going on Ba'aseisa the mitzvahs Hashem asher lo ta'asana. Ba'aseisa goes on the mitzvahs lo ta'asana. Kalemer, meaning to say Ba'aseisa oisa, when it does the entire mitzvahs lo ta'asana. So that's the first part where Tosfos explains how the limit works. That we put the word Ba'aseisa to go on achas me mitzvahs Hashem asher lo ta'asana. Now Tosfos is going to address the seeming repetition in the teaching. The entire teaching is referring to the case where one did the akira and another individual did the hanacha. And it's only repeating itself. The lekal and we cannot say the beishasu iri. We can't say that there's two teachings here. One is ha'isa kula v'lo miktsasa. One who does the entire malacha, not if he does part. So if they each did part, there's no chiyuv chatas. And then there's another teaching. Yachid v'asa chayiv, shnaim sha'asu apturim, means to say that if one person did the entire malacha on his own, he's chayiv. However, if while doing the malacha, somebody else was helping him the entire time, so not each one did part, but rather they both did the akira together and removed it from the rishos and did the anacha together. So maybe that's what it's referring to. Yachid, if one person did it alone, yachid v'asa chayiv. Shnaim shasu, if two people did it together jointly, P'turim, says Tosfos, v'lekal l'meimer, we're unable to say the beis shasu, that two people that did it, that teaching, Iri is talking about the beis shasu b'vas achas, by two people who did it jointly together. Why not? The Perikam and Sniya, because later on in Perikam and Sniya, mashma, it seems that tzrichi treikrai, we need two psukim, l'zeh eikev v'zeh maniach, for teaching the case where one did akir, one did anacha, that is pater from mechatas, and another pasuk for the case where they did it jointly together. So we cannot say, and the Bryce is saying from Ba'aseisa, we learn two things, because later on it seems to teach us that to teach both of those things, we need two psukim. And here we only have one that's presented in the Bryce. V'oid, and furthermore, another proof to show that the words Yachid v'Isa Chayiv and Beis Shasu P'turim is not referring to doing the malacha jointly, but rather when each one did part. The Be'itmar Nami, because we brought a second proof in the Gemara. We said Itmar Nami, we also learned this teaching that when each person does part of it, there's no Chiyuv Chatas. We brought another teaching for it, the Kayamasnis, and it's referring to our Mishnah where they each did half. Nami Ka'amar Hailish, and it also uses this lashon Yachid v'Isa chayiv, that if one person did it, he's chayiv, and shnaim she'asu p'turim. So we see clearly that the lashon of yachid v'oisa chayiv and shnaim she'asu p'turim is referring to a case where each one did part of the malacha. Now Tosfos is going to ask two questions. The first he won't have an answer to, and the second he will. Achkash, however, it's difficult. The Perikam and Sniya, because in Perikam and Sniya mashma, it seems the zeh eker v'zeh maniach, this case where one did the akir, one did the anacha, each one did part of the malacha. Nafka min nefesh achas. We learn it out from nefesh, or from the word achas, that there's no chiyuv chatas. And here the Gemara is presenting a brisa that says we learn it out from the word Ba'aseisa. And that question Tosfos leaves. And here we learn it out mi Ba'aseisa from Ba'aseisa. Kasha l'ri, it's difficult to the read. Now Tosfos is going to ask a question using the Gemara in the Yerushalmi. From the fact that we need a pasuk to teach us that it's pater. Mashma, it seems to be the ze'oker v'zemaniach hayav a mishkan, that the case where each one did part of the malacha was in the mishkan. How do we see that? Because If it wasn't in the Mishkan, we would need a pasuk to tell us it's pater. It would be pater simply because it wasn't in the Mishkan. As we learned earlier, that by Haitzah, not only does the Av have to be found in the Mishkan, but also the Tulda has to be found in the Mishkan. So if it wasn't in the Mishkan, we wouldn't need a pasuk to tell us it's pater. We'd know it on our own. So from the fact that we do have a pasuk telling us that it's pater, indicates that otherwise we'd say it's chayiv because it wasn't in the Mishkan. This idea that something is in the Mishkan, but we have a pasuk to tell us it's pater, is found elsewhere as well. Reb Shimon says it's pater when neither of them can do the entire malacha on their own. Neither one of them is able, for example, to pick up the object, and they need both of them to do it. Reb Shimon says that in that case, and they did it jointly, they're pater. Because we learn it out, because Yachid is a chayiv, not from our brisa, but that was words. If one person does it, it's chayiv, but not if they did it jointly. Even though it was done in the Mishkan, Kegoin, for example, the two people that carried the Aron, neither of them could hold it alone, so they carried it jointly. And nevertheless, even though it was in the Mishkan, we still say it's pater because we have a pasuk. So too by us. It was performed in the Mishkan, but we have a pasuk to tell us so that it's pater. This leads now to a question. Yerushalmi Perak HaZerik, in Yerushalmi in Perak HaZerik, there's on this that it's nan. The Yerushalmi says on this that it's written in the Mishnah, Shtei Guzos Reis Rishus Harabim. If there's two porches in Rishus Harabim, Hayushtein B'dyuta Achas, if they were both along the same row, not across from one another, but on the same row, Hameishid Chayev, the person who passes from one to the other is Chayev. So Amar Rav Chama b'Shem Rav Maisha, Rav Chama said in the name of Rav Maisha, Ubilvad Ayidei Beis. This is only if it's through two people. If one person were to do the entire thing alone, there would be no Chiyuv. It's only if two people did it will there be a Chiyuv. Uparach, so the Gemara asks over there, B'chol Asar, everywhere Amris, you told me, Beisha Su'a Pturim, that if two people did something, they're pater. The Kan Amris Chayav, and now you tell me it's Chayav. Umeshani, and the Gemara answers, Shekach Hoysa Avodas Levim. That's the way the Avodah Levim was, so therefore it's Chayav. Now this leads to this question. Vahashta now, Mapekach, what of it? Shahis of Mishkan. So what if it was in the Mishkan? Mikom Mokim, Havale the Potter, Lifter, he should have made Potter, Moshe, the person who passed it, came in the Shnei Moshe, since both of them did it. We just said that even if it's done in the Mishkan, if there's a pasuk telling us Potter, it's going to be Potter. So what of it that Moshe was done in the Mishkan involving two people? We have a pasuk that tells us that Shnayim Shasua Pturim from Ba'aseisa. And Tosfos answers, Vanilla Ri, it seems to the Ri, to be Moshe Ein Za'ikev Zamaniach. The case of the Yerushalmi where it says they're only chayiv if there were two people, it doesn't mean to say that one did the Akira and the other did the Anacha. Each one did part of the Malacha, because then it would be Potter. Allah Moshe also Akira of Anacha. Rather, the person who passed it did the entire Malacha, the Akira and the Anacha. It's just that the din is that only if he did the Akira and the Anacha into another person's hand is he chayiv. However, if he did the Akira and the Anacha just into the porch itself, he would be pater. Now the question is, if that's the case, then what was the Yerushalmi's question? That usually two people that did it is pater. It's not two people. It's only one person. Tosfos explains, the only question to the Yerushalmi was, on this, that he doesn't make chayiv Moshe, only when this fellow received it. That was troubling the Yerushalmi. Why is it that if nobody was there and he placed it into the porch, he's pater? But if he placed it into his fellow's hand, he'll be chayiv. But if he just placed it onto Rishus HaYachid Acher, another one, outside of the one he's in, pater is pater. And in all other places, when another person's involved, pater tfei, it actually leads to pater. So how come over here it does the opposite effect? Usually if another person's involved and actually does part of the malacha, it takes away from the chiyuv and leads it to pater. In this instance, it's sort of the opposite. If nobody else is there, it'll be a pater. But if his fellow is there, not that he did part of the malacha, but if he was there and he placed it in his hand, then he'll become chayiv. Where do we see that, generally speaking, another person takes away? For example, when two people did it together. And over here he's not making chayiv, except when it's through his fellow. So to summarize Tosfos first presented us with a girsa that's found in most Gemaras, which is so one who does the whole malacha is chayiv, and not one who does part of it. If one person did it, chayiv beishas, or if two people did it, term their pater. And Tosfos explains two things. Number one, where do we learn this from? We learn it because we put the word ba'aseisa to go on achas mitzvahs Hashem. It needs to do the entire thing that Hashem said not to do in order to be chayiv v'chatas. The second thing Tosfos points out, that although it sounds like there's two teachings here, it's only one, and he proves it from two places. Then Tosfos went on to ask a question that here we're saying we learn out the din from Ba'aseisa, and elsewhere in Parak HaMetzniyah we said that we learn it out either from the word nefesh or from achas. And the third and final point in Tosfos is a question from the Yerushalmi, where it seems to say in the Yerushalmi that even when in a case when two people did it, they'll still be chayiv if it's done that way in the Mishkan. And the question is that it would seem that when it's done in the Mishkan, nevertheless it'll be pater if there's a pasuk. And Tosfos answers that the Yerushalmi was not referring to a case where each person did part of the malacha, because then it would be pater, but rather it's referring to a case where the one person did the entire malacha. The Yerushalmi is just saying that it's necessary for there to be another person there where that the item was placed into his hand.